Welcome to Bridging to Geekdoms. I'm your host, Robert Slavinsky, and with me in probably about 5 or so minutes will be the man who was Halle Berry's stand-in in Catwoman, Ken Yombo. So he'll be here very shortly. But before we get into the show and everything, I do want to I want to explain how this works. Okay. The first 20 to 30 minutes or so of the show consists of and is dedicated to a few hot topics, which we will discuss. These will be newsworthy items from the past week or possibly hot takes that me or one of the other hosts may have. After that, the second half of the show will be dedicated to a main topic. Our main topic this week is the worst comic book films. That's right. We will be discussing what we believe are the worst comic book films to have come out over the years. But before we get into all that, let's talk about some hot topics. The first thing I kind of want to talk about is Prey. Prey came out on Hulu just about a week or so ago. And I tell you what, I've not been a fan of the Predator series since probably the first Predator. I mean, I was a kid when I saw the first Predator, and I enjoyed it to a certain degree. Saw the second one, I was like, how do you go from Arnold Schwarzenegger to Danny Glover? Didn't really make sense to me, but the second one wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad as so many nowadays say it is. We then got the Alien vs. Predator movies, which weren't terrible. Weren't terrible, but they also weren't great. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about it. The Predator always just seemed like an odd character to me, a character that just I don't know, it's just something about him just never really resonated with me as a bad guy, as a villain. I always rooted for the alien in the AVP film. So then we got that Predators film with that came out, what was that, 2012, 2013, something like that. I think was it Robert Rodriguez that made that one, maybe? I don't know. It was all right. There was a lot of excitement around it. I remember it wasn't great though. It did nothing to push the franchise forward. It basically was the first Predator just on a different planet or something like that. I mean, come on, you had Topher Grace in that movie. Topher Grace. Then we got the Shane Black The Predator, which came out just a few years back. And my gosh, was that a horrible, 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 horrible film. Shane Black has fallen mightily sometimes. You know, let's not forget he wrote the original Lethal Weapon. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, to this day, is probably still one of my top 10 favorite all-time films, if not top 5. 10, top 10. We'll go top 10. I absolutely adore that film. What is it? The Other Guys? Is that what it's called? Not The Other Guys. Nice Guys. That was great as well. Very Kiss Kiss Bang Bang like. But then he had films like Iron Man 3 and The Predator, which were just horrendous. So when they announced this Prey film, I was kind of sitting there like, why? They haven't hit a home run with this series, with this idea since the 80s with the first one, really. So why are they continuously going back to this well? And then it was, oh, it's not coming to theaters, it's going to Hulu, and the movie's going to take place in the 1700s. Sorry, I just bit my lip. Ow. And it's going to take place in the 1700s. Well, to me, how can a predator, or how can anybody beat a predator in the 1700s? Not only that, but it's with Native Americans. So they don't have even the weaponry of the colonialists or anything like that. Their weaponry is bow and arrows and hatchets, essentially, and rocks. So I was kind of confused on how that was going to work, but then I started hearing the reviews and hearing people who were seeing this film, and man, the excitement around that movie was toxic because it pushed me to watch Prey. It pushed me to put it on and check it out. And holy crap, was it good? It is wildly, wildly entertaining. No, it's not as good as the first Predator, but this is a very close second to that. There's so much in this film that just is really just cool. There's this moment when the main character takes a hatchet or a small axe and puts a rope on it, and she starts using it, or is going to use it as a weapon, and she throws it and pulls it through. It's badass. Now, there are a lot of people out there calling the woke culture with this film. Oh, they had to put a woman in the lead. First off, no. The story, the movie works as is. My opinion when it comes to the woke culture is when you're implementing or inputting somebody or someone into a role simply because of their race or gender. That's not the case here. This film was amazing. And it's not because it was a woman lead. It's not because that they pushed that a woman could do these things. The story was intriguing. They made you care about these characters. And then the action was solid. You actually have reasons on why these Native Americans from the 1700s can actually go toe-to-toe with a predator. And it's just absolutely fantastic and amazing. And I'm telling you, if you haven't watched it yet, which is baffling to me if you haven't, because it is the number one anything on Hulu ever. The number one movie, number one show to ever premiere on Hulu. It is fantastic. Do yourself a favor and go check out Prey. I loved it, and I think you will too. But let us know in the comments what you thought of Prey if you did see it. If you didn't see it, well, let us know in the comments what you thought of Prey after you do see it, because I think you will enjoy it. But as I said earlier, the man today that will be with me, the man who was Halle Berry's stunt double in Catwoman.
I take that as a complete and total compliment, so I am not offended by it at all. What's up, Rob? How are you? So totally not offended by it, and honestly, if you didn't catch the cameo back then you haven't caught most of my cameos throughout most of the movies that we're about to talk about today. So it's a multiverse of tens, honestly. So
oh boy.
How are you, Rob? I just want to throw my quick comment on Prey. A lot of people are going to be disappointed in me, but I actually ended up falling asleep at the end of it. It was a long day of work, but from the hour and a half I got into it, great way to bring us back into the roots of the franchise, but giving us a different setting with the timeline and stuff. Personally, I have one question. Was it originally supposed to be in Comanche, or was the idea always to have just like Comanche subtitles? Because I brought that up to one of my friends in a recent discussion about it.
Well, it's pretty interesting. The movie, you can actually turn on Comanche and you can watch it in that language and as well.
Okay.
So it's in both English and Comanche, and I believe they do have Comanche subtitles with it for it as well. But that's how they did it. They did it for both, which I thought was pretty impressive and pretty cool. It's
pretty
different.
Awesome. That's pretty cool. But I have to finish it. I did spoil myself with the kind of tease towards the future, but from like I said, from what I said, kind of a real nice throwback to the original movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, kind of just like man versus or woman this time versus predators. So it's a great way to get back into its roots, and I will be finishing it. I promise to everybody. So I'll give my full take at a time where it's available. Maybe on the YouTube Shorts that we were talking about a little bit lately.
Yeah, definitely. So what's been up with you, man? Let's catch up with you before we move on. So what's new?
Well, just so I guess quick little life note. I actually just got my first job in a law firm, so I'm going to be officially working in downtown law firm down in Manhattan, Midtown, starting August 22nd. So that's something that's really going to be awesome. Will not affect my attendance on the show. I made sure that was one of the points that I brought up in the interview, obviously, but no, I'm excited. It feels like a new chapter and a new beginning for everything. So it's exciting, awesome. And really want to do a new chapter in the Cultured Nerd and the Bridging the Geekdoms as well. So I'm excited for a lot of new exciting things to come for the year and the new year as well. So
that's pretty exciting. That's pretty exciting for sure. Well, congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
So, but don't be messaging us for law information or anything like that.
Right. Yes. I do get expensive after a while, so.
All right. Well, let's jump over to this next thing. Black Adam. Black Adam, is a movie that's the next big DC film coming up, and There's really it's kind of bizarre because there's like a mixed reaction to this right now, and I think it's because there's so many people that want Henry Cavill to come back as Superman. Dwayne Johnson is refusing to acknowledge what kind of Superman he will ever face down if he does face down a Superman. Then you have the controversy with the whole Super Pets thing, where was he talking that, oh, Black Adam and Superman are going to fight in the Super Pets universe, but not the real universe, and that kind of thing. Well, there's a new report that came out earlier this week that says that there is a new post-credit scene that was added to Black Adam. The question is, what is it? There's a lot of people who are hoping that it's Henry Cavill, but what do you think it is? Or because people are saying it's essentially just hey, this is where Black Adam's going to be in the DC universe in the future. But what do you think it could be?
So I'm going to give you present two sort of hopes. So I think from what I've heard or from what I've read, I want to say like a month ago, that it was another appearance by your favorite Shadow Superman, kind of shadows while Viola Davis is Amanda Wallace, kind of informing him of Black Adam and that they need to take him down and stuff like that. So I think something of that nature, maybe with, I guess, a shown Superman and instead of a headless or just in the shadows Superman, would be pretty cool, and that's kind of a hope. But for me, I think for right now, with everything which we'll talk about, I'm assuming in a little bit, the everything that's going on with the Flash and the uncertainty that's kind of surrounding that. I think it would be best if they kind of focus on a smaller arc rather than a larger arc, and I think maybe teasing a crossover with Shazam first before we're delving straight into a Superman drop. But I think it could be hinted at, and I think it could be followed up on maybe in a Black Adam sequel where he faces Shazam, or where Shazam goes to Superman for help or something. But I think
Per-
presenting I've also read something that presenting Black Adam as kind of like the Thanos of the universe is something that's intriguing for sure, but I don't really think that would work. But I think something more along the lines of like the second post-credit scene is really what I'm hoping for, just because of really what's going on around DC rather than going on in their own Black Adam universe. So
my hope, and people are going to hate me for this. My hope is that they just took out the little bit with the faceless, headless, or shadowed Superman. Just take that out. Make this a post-credit scene, essentially setting up Black Adam for Shazam. Don't mention Superman at
yeah,
all. If you don't have a Superman, if you don't have a face to show, don't show any Superman. Don't mention Superman. Don't do anything with Superman in this film at all, if possible. Cut anything out that has any reference to Superman, if possible, because that will just get people's hopes up that something is coming with Cavill. And then say they don't get a deal made with Cavill, say there isn't something done with Cavill, then you have a pissed off fan base who is already on high alert after everything that happened last week.
right.
You can't keep screwing with the fan base right now, and I think that's the best way to go. Even if they have Cavill signed at this point, even if they have a deal, if it's not Cavill's face that's popping up on there, don't show it at all. Just don't show it at all. That's just my opinion, and I don't want them to screw with the fans anymore. I think this is an opportunity. I think fans are a little more forgiving right now with everything, because they're understanding this is a change of ownership and they're trying to right the ship. So people will be more forgiving if Black Adam comes out and there's no Superman, no reference to Superman, no nothing, as opposed to if they showed a shadowy figure or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's something that we alluded to in our last show, kind of like the Walter Hamada, like his, or maybe a couple shows ago, where it's like, it's still an event film if it's Black Adam versus Shazam, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And you already have, it's one of the few corners of the DCEU right now that's a little developed, because Shazam's getting its own sequel, and then you have Black Adam, which will obviously be set probably in terms of connective tissue with the Wizard that we saw in the first Shazam. And I think just kind of bridging Shazam Black Adam franchises together. There's only the natural step, and like I said, something where along the lines where Black Adam kind of beat Shazam, and in their meeting, and then in the post credit scene, if everything gets cleared with Henry Cavill, you could include him in a scene where Shazam's kind of going to him for help or for advice to kind of see where you're going with it. But
Mhm.
other than that, it's probably going to be really interesting to see how this movie shakes out. I think some of the trepidation is unwarranted, but I do fear that this movie will fall in terms of a little more on the generic side of things. It won't really reinvent the wheel in terms of what we've seen before, but it is an opportunity to see The Rock in a role that a lot of fans have clamored to see him in, and
Yeah.
hopefully they did a lot of the supporting characters justice from the Justice Society of America in terms of Doctor Fate and Hawkman and all of them, and they look great on screen right now. So hopefully it turns out for the best, and we can start getting the ball rolling in this universe, which it will get rolling at some point.
Speaking of which, you were just talking about that. There's the latest exclusive Vanity Fair image of Aldous Hodge as Hawkman. I think that looks badass.
Yeah.
I really do.
I really don't
Um,
like how the mask kind of fits in a way, but I hope that maybe that gets removed during battle and just kind of
I'm
has
sure he's not going to
him.
wear that long. I
Right,
can't. I mean,
yeah.
you hire an
The
actor
look
to
is a
show their
little,
face.
yeah. The look is a little. I mean, the rest of it looks good. The helmet slash mask part, it leaves a little room for error for me at least, but that's
See, I
I
love
guess
it.
just my person.
There's
Yeah.
not anything I dislike about it. But yeah, no,
Okay.
I understand. I completely understand. But yeah, well, I think Aldous or Aldous Hodge is gonna absolutely kill this.
Yeah, I'm
Kill
really
it.
excited for Pierce Brosnan's Doctor Fate. I actually just finished watching Justice Society of America World War II, the animated movie that's in the, I guess, dubbed Tomorrowverse animated series, and
Hmm.
Doctor Fate was kind of in a small part of it, and it's really intriguing to see his power set kind of come to this universe. Really could be akin to something like Doctor Strange, even. So, really going to be cool to see Pierce Brosnan in the role as well. It's beautiful beard win with him in there as well.
Yeah, for sure. Let me see. So let us know your thoughts on Black Adam, everything that's going on with Black Adam. What do you think the post credit scene, the new one, is? Have you talked to somebody who actually saw it? Let us know in the comments what you think on all of that. Next up, I don't know why we talk about this guy, but we're going to talk about it. Ezra Miller. Mr. Ezra Miller is once again caught in some legal trouble. He's in the news. It's being reported that he is facing charges from breaking and entering and theft. Now, this incident did occur back in May, but it's only getting reported on now. And that's pretty typical for smaller, issues like that. It doesn't always get, I think the press release came because a court date was set, which makes sense. That's when that kind of stuff, this smaller stuff would get publicized. But there's a lot, and I'm actually talking to somebody on Twitter today about this because there's this hashtag Ezra Miller is innocent, and I want to know why people think this. Why do you believe? Why are there people that believe that Ezra Miller is innocent? I've always been told where there's smoke, there's fire. And there is a shit ton of smoke surrounding Ezra Miller. Even some people that both Ken and I know are sitting there pushing this conspiracy idea that, oh, this is all people behind the scenes. They have an agenda to push him out as being the Flash or to screw up the DC films and this and that. But why? At this point, there's no reason to think that there's any conspiracy to push out Ezra Miller. That, to me, that is just ridiculous and idiotic, really. So, what do you
Well,
think?
I mean, I think this is a perfect scenario of where, like what you said, where there's a shit ton of fire. There's definitely where there's a shit ton of smoke. There's a lot of fire, and to be honest with you, I think this is also kind of there's three sides to every story. There's the side that's being media. There's the side that's being presented by Ezra Miller, if he ended up releasing a public statement or just kind of an update of where he's at. But
Mhm.
I think, and then the middle ground where there's truth. And while I do believe these accusations, just out of the recycling of the news that we've seen him with him lately, in terms of the last, I want to say, year, the past year, it's been just him in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. And it seems like he legitimately, we touched on this countless of times, is people getting help for probably may think that they have, that they just want to get checked up on and stuff. And it's just troubling to see that this situation has just gone from bad to worse, it seems. And so I feel like when we last talked about this as a segment on the show, we thought it really couldn't get any worse, but it's just found a way to for the situation to deteriorate and deteriorate. And it's disappointing, to for sure. I'm not going to say who, but definitely when the news broke, one of the first things that was said was the Snyderverse is officially dead. And while that's something that fans will obviously still hope against, it's tough to go against that statement. And for right now, I know there was an article that came out today, kind of mulling over the three paths that they want to go with, and you see them right here. And personally, I hope for Ezra Miller to just get the help that he needs, regardless of whether he issues a public statement or goes through a public interview kind of explaining his behavior, which I believe is that's a setup for failure as well. I think that's something that could really backfire on Warner Bros. If things just don't go the way they expected. And with Ezra Miller, we just had come to expect the unexpected. So while these
Yeah.
are logical and sensible options, a lot of signs are pointing towards option two or option three at this point, more realistically than option one. So
Yeah, I mean, these things that are going on, look, I can understand if one or two over the last couple years was a misunderstanding, or nothing to really worry about. But the fact that there have been multiple, over five, more than half a dozen, probably closer to 10 than not, issues that have happened over the past couple years is absolutely absurd. And the fact that people will sit there and say that he's innocent, and I get, in the United States of America, where we're at, and you should know this, being in law, you are innocent until proven guilty. And I am all for believing that. But right now, why? Like, it's kind of like, all right, there's a guy who is selling drugs. So you arrest him. He gets out on bail. Then he goes and shoots somebody. You arrest him. Somehow gets out on bail again. And then he goes and robs a liquor store. And then he gets out again. Okay. Yeah, he's innocent right now until proven guilty in the courts, but we saw all the shit he did. It's kind of obvious at that point. And that's my problem. That's kind of what's going on with Ezra Miller here, is there's just so much stuff that's piling up. It's hard to believe that at least one of those things is not true. There's got to be some truth to some of this. And the fact that he's with his mom in Vermont right now, allegedly in Vermont with his mother, who's supposedly helping him through, and there's rumor that he's going to seek help. If that is true, then we have to know that he's acknowledging, at the very least at this point, that these things going on is real and is true. So that, to me, that is what is concerning. And the three options that, what was it, the Hollywood Reporter is reporting on, is option one: Ezra Miller's therapy went well, and he will do a public statement. He will then be limited to what he does on the press tour, and then they will release the Flash film. That is option one that they're supposedly mulling over. Option two is they will release the film regardless of what Miller does. And if he doesn't get the help he needs, if he doesn't do a public statement, he will be dismissed. He will not join in on the press tours, and they will recast the Flash moving forward. And then option three is scrapping the film, which I don't think is going to happen. You're talking about a $200 million film that they've spent $200 million on at this point. Yeah, they're probably going to spend another $100 to $200 million on marketing coming up. But if they get smart with the marketing, I think this film could still very, very easily break even or do slightly better than even. I think this movie, regardless of what happens, if they release this film, it'll easily make $400 to $500 million, if not more. So I think they're going to release it regardless. I think that's going to be the route they go. The question is, what is Ezra Miller going to do at this point? I personally think that Warner Brothers needs to get, they just need to be firm, because he's not just the face of this franchise. He's also the face of another running franchise for Warner Brothers. There's 2 franchises that he's the face of right now. And he's doing this. And that is absolutely crazy to me, because granted, the last Fantastic Beasts film wasn't fantastic, but it's still a franchise that has potential of moving forward in some form or fashion, and he's a big part of it. And then you have the Flash movie, which is supposed to be the big restart of the DCEU moving forward, and you have him doing the shit that he's doing now. To me, it's crazy. I just can't believe it. Now, Ken lost connection, so he'll be back on in a second. But let us know in the comments what you think about this. This Ezra Miller shenanigan, everything going on is crazy at this point. Should they cancel The Flash? Should they not? Let us know in the comments what you think. What do you think, Ken? Do you think they should cancel the Flash movie? Do you think that's what they should do?
At this point, with everything that is up in the air, as my personal opinion, it would be unprecedented. It would be the most unprecedented move, I believe, in Hollywood history. But with the importance of this movie to this universe and the just circus that Ezra Miller has decided to bring with him to this movie and character, unfortunately, I think it would behoove them to just flat out call it quits on this and kind of figure out, focus, I guess, on more smaller budgets to kind of make up for the loss at this point, but then really bounce back in about 2 or 3 years and start announcing these big tentpole films where it makes sense, it fits inside of the timeline, rather than, just letting it release because it's been made. But I understand the monetary side of things as well, but I think just in all best interest to cut ties and avoid confusion moving forward, to just cancel it flat out. And that's a shame, because it's something that I've just been so intrigued to see since it was announced, I don't know, all the way back in 2014. But yeah, that's just where we're at right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. 100% crazy.
Yeah.
And I hope they do what's right. I do. I hope they do what's right. But I guess we'll see. I guess we will see. All right. I want to say something here that I'm really excited about. Just came out, I think, yesterday, the day before. Sonic 3 has a release date. Sonic 3 is coming out holiday Christmas of 2023, I believe, which puts it up against Avatar 3. Should be interesting for sure, but I'm excited. I've loved those 2 films, the 2 that have come out so far. There's definitely a surprise. I think they might be my favorite video game adaptation to movie, 100%.
Okay, so I haven't really personally watched them, so would you recommend it, or?
Oh, 100%.
I've played the games, but I'm not like too familiar with the characters in terms of like, I know who's who. Obviously, I know who the main character is, but I guess just side characters that have been introduced as the films have gone on have generated a lot of excitement. But I'm not too familiar with it. But if it's something that's worth a watch, maybe one day I'll throw both of them on. Be a nice little binge for me to have. So.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. I definitely think you'll enjoy it. All right, so we're going to move on to our main topic here. But before we do that, I want everybody to head over to our YouTube. If you haven't been to our YouTube, or go to any podcatching app, find our YouTube channel, hit that like button, hit subscribe, all that jazz, because by doing so, you're going to help us get more noticed. Also, we got some great things right now. This week, I released an interview I did with Shannon Rona of the Pittsburgh Avengers. She's a cosplayer, and Brad Lambert, who He's kind of a talent manager and has helped Shannon quite a bit. Shannon's been on the show in the past, so I brought her back on just to really pick her brain. But Brad really kind of stole the show and took over. And there's some things that have happened in his life over the past year that were kind of shocking to me to hear. And it was a nice little outlet for him to clear the air. And I encourage you all to watch it. It's an excellent interview, or listen to it. It's on our podcast feed as well. So make sure you check that out. And coming up, Colton and I were talking the other day, and he wanted to try a show idea. So we did a test run earlier this week for a show idea that he's calling Top Deck. And basically, it's just going to be him, me, or anybody really who wants to join, where we just sit there and bullshit about whatever the hell we want to talk about. So we recorded an episode of that. He's in the middle of getting that edited. Hopefully it'll be up later this week, early next week. So be on the lookout for that. I'm kind of excited about it. Hopefully Ken will get some time to jump on there.
For sure, a guest star for sure. I think
it doesn't need to necessarily be a guest star. I mean, it just be on. I mean, it's one of those things where we just wanted to try something different, and we kind of wanted to sit down and see how it flowed, how it worked. So we wanted to get the kinks out of it, and we think we got the kinks out of it. It was a short, like 30-minute recording, and I think we're going to shoot for like 30, 40-minute recordings for this. And so it's not, anybody who wants to be on can be on. That's kind of the idea with it. So be on the lookout for that. All right, so let's get into the main thing. The worst of the worst when it comes to comic book films. We're going to kind of go over our own list of 5 worst comic book films, and then we have a couple surprises at the end of those lists. And I'm going to go ahead and let Ken, you go ahead and go first. What's your number 5?
I actually wanna just say that this was a lot harder than I thought. And I'm not going to lie to you, Rob. I have a completely different list than what I submitted to you. Not completely different. Some of them are in different order, but I've kind of switched it up a little bit. So the list that you have is not the accurate list anymore. So from number 5 for me, it's a tie. It's going to be any Batman movie after Batman Returns. So that would be Batman Forever, Batman and Robin. Am I missing any? Batman and Robin.
Batman,
I think that's it.
Forever, Batman and Robin. Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
So Batman and Robin?
It would be those two. Yeah.
Batman
and Robin, and yeah. So there'd be a tie of those. I really didn't like the campy tone that these movies had. Obviously, some performances stood out more than others, but this was, I believe, rock bottom for the character of Batman on a cinematic display and viewpoint. So, yeah, the Bat credit card, Bat nipples, just all of it was a little much to just
Bat nipples are awesome, man.
Yeah. I hope the next iteration, I hope Robert Pattinson's suit upgrade includes that as well. So, Matt Reeves, if you're taking suggestions, please let me know. But yeah, that was just it. It really, for the better, actually made Warner Bros. Kind of just reboot the whole thing and allowed for the direction of kind of Christian Bale's Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman, and kind of introduced us to the modern interpretation of a Batman on film. Yeah. So that's, I guess, a positive from it, but that's my number 5 for sure.
Yeah, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. All right, well, then my number 5, which isn't actually too shocking. I mean, look, the X-Men franchise has been around since 2001, 2002, something like that. It's been around for 2000. It's been around for a while, and it's undoubtedly going to have some bad films here and there. But this one, I there's about 3 or 4 X-Men films that I sit there and I say, man, those are terrible. Those are terrible movies. And I wanted to put one on the list, and then I was like, but then there's this one, and then there's this one. Well, I have to go with X-Men Origins Wolverine. That movie, in so many ways, is just terrible. From casting choices, look, we all love Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool now, but what they did with Deadpool in that film was absolutely atrocious. That was ridiculous, and they should not. That should be a crime, what they did to that character there. Not only that, but the CGI, the special effects in that film were the worst that I think I have ever seen. Ever seen. So for
I don't know
me,
how I don't know how anyone in editing or VFX saw Wolverine's claws and thought that was acceptable. And that's just really the tip of the iceberg on that. But I just
yeah.
really have no I yeah, that's I agree. I debated for a while putting a couple of X-Men movies up here, but I actually recently did a rewatch of a lot of the main continuity X-Men films, and
Mhm.
honestly, I guess maybe the nostalgia kind of grows on me just watching these characters from 2000, but I actually didn't find X-Men that terrible watching it for maybe like a fourth or fifth time, like intently, or, I didn't find Dark Phoenix, I mean, not Dark Phoenix, I didn't find Apocalypse as bad as I originally thought, but, not the greatest, obviously, but I found more forgiveness for this franchise for what it is, honestly. So
Yeah, yeah. Last Stand. I have a funny story about Last Stand, real quick. That movie came out what 2005, 2006. I think it was
four,
2006.
yeah, to the six,
Last Stand.
yeah,
I think it was
six, yep.
2006, and I was only then like really getting more into the comic book genre at that time, not just film, but even comic books. Like I started in the 90s as a kid with Spider-Man and I knew Batman and stuff like that. But I started diving in the mid 2000s, early to mid 2000s, the early aughts, I should say. And as I was diving in, I went and saw X-Men The Last Stand and I came out, I was like, man, that movie's fantastic. And I had a buddy who was like a diehard X-Men fan. And he's like, dude, you're an idiot. I was like, why? He's like, read this. And he gave me the Phoenix Saga. He gave me, or not the Phoenix Saga, but he gave me stuff about Phoenix and Dark Phoenix, and gave me all this information on these characters, and I was like, my God, like what did they do to these characters? So I went back and watched it with those eyes, and I was like, yeah, this is one of the worst comic book movies ever. Is that you? I
I
think
agree.
is that there's some static. I think that might be you. All right. Well, as he's trying to figure that out, let's see. I think he's good now. I don't hear any static now. But we'll keep moving. I'll do my number 4 then while we're waiting for Ken. My number 4 is actually what Ken's number 5 is, and that's Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin is probably one of the worst films, comic book films to ever come out. I remember going to see that movie in theaters with my brother. My brother gave me a choice to either go see the Keenan and Kel epic film Good Burger or Batman and Robin. And I chose Batman and Robin, and I think that was a poor choice. I think I would have preferred to see Good Burger, but it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say. Bat nipples, bat butts, terrible one-liners. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze, ridiculous. Really, not much more to say about that movie than that. There. So that was my number 4. All right, Ken, you back?
Yes, sir.
All right, what's your number 4?
So my number 4 is, despite what I said about the franchise of the X-Men being extremely forgiving, I cannot forgive them for releasing Dark Phoenix in any sort of way, shape, or form. This was, obviously you hear the chatter that happened behind the scenes and stuff, so you knew this movie was going to be a disaster from the start. But you did have a little hope that maybe it would give the prequel cast kind of the send off that they deserve, because they really reinvigorated the franchise with X-Men First Class, which I hold in high regard, right behind Days of Future Past and the original X-Men film, as one of the top entries in this franchise. But just really disappointing. If you think it wouldn't work the first time, you might try to do it better the second time, but in actuality, they found a way to make it worse the second time. So I feel like it was a real waste of just the storyline once again. And yeah, this was a tough watch. At times, it didn't even feel like a X-Men film. You just see Michael Fassbender or James McAvoy, and you're like, oh yes, we're in an X-Men film. But the villain was extremely weak, and a common thread that you'll see throughout some of these films is a weak villain or just a weak story in general. And yeah, this was a tough watch for me. It was a really bad conclusion to what I believe deserved better, especially after Apocalypse kind of fell a little short of expectations. But Dark Phoenix is right there in terms of top worst movies, to top worst comic book movies I've ever seen.
All right, go with your number three.
My number three, and this
I mean, I have
is
to agree
a
with the X-Men, by the way. I mean, that's
yeah,
a bad movie. That's one of the ones I was kind of going between Wolverine and that. So
yeah, and I'd even argue Wolverine is a little better than that, but just with the effects, it just makes it hard. But my number three is Suicide Squad, the original one from David Ayer, 2016. I thought this movie was edited extremely choppy. It just reeked of studio. Well, at the time when I watched it, I had no idea what studio interference meant. But as time has gone on and I've seen how things have unfolded at Warner Bros., this just reeks of studio interference and just mandates and just, you hear the rumors that this movie was edited by the people, by a company that edited the trailers themselves, and you could definitely tell with just some of the effects and the way it was. And if you're gonna have Jared Leto's Joker in it, why cut him out of it? And
yeah,
just I thought there were elements of this movie that worked, that still made it watchable. Mainly Will Smith, Margot Robbie, Joel Kinnaman, like the original cast and the original team was what saved that movie. But my goodness, the editing was just so choppy and such a knee jerk reaction from what I believe is the reaction to Batman versus Superman. But, release the Ayer cut if that's still a thing. So that's kind of my 2 cents about it. And it'll share a common thread with my number one pick, but my expectations for this going into this movie theater watching this was, wow, this is really the birth of the DCEU. Like, this is about to be cool. We're about to be introduced to all the villains that we're about to be seeing scattered throughout the universe that are going to face off against some of the heroes that we've seen. And they even threw a Flash cameo in there and all that stuff. And it just, I felt so disappointed. And it was just something that I couldn't wash out of a taste I couldn't wash out of my mouth for a very long time. And to this day, talking about it now, it's still really tough to kind of fathom what I saw in front of me with the expectations I was going into it with. So my number three is Suicide Squad, and
my number. Oh, look, the Suicide Squad. Here's the thing. I don't hate that movie. I actually enjoy it to a point, but it isn't what it should have
and
been.
and so do I, for sure. And I factor my expectations going into it have versus how I felt after it,
Yeah.
and just one of the more disappointing comic book movies I've ever seen. So
Yeah. That's why I've gotten away from doing a lot of like immediate reactions to films because I come out of a film with like a high. So I'm always like, oh man, that was great. But then whenever I sit on it for a few days, a week or so, that's when I start to mull over like, wow, that didn't make any sense. Wow, that was really dumb. Why did they do that? And that's
yep.
whenever I start to see and feel the real, my real feelings on the movie. And that's actually something I've always said I wish it would make that happen with film reviewers. I wish that they would say, watch this movie and you cannot, you can't put a review. And I know they have embargoes and stuff, but most of those people will go watch a movie, go write the review, and then it sits there waiting to be released for 3 weeks. I wish there was a way to like, look, go watch a movie. You can't write something until a week later and follow that damn rule because I think views and thoughts on films change in that span of time. But that's just
Yep. Yep. That's for
uh
sure.
my number three. I had to, another 90s, and I hate that there's multiple 90s films in mine right now because the 90s were a very, very interesting time when it came to comic book films, and I tried to not hold,
Experimental, I would say.
yeah, and I try to not hold that against them. Like we have the terrible Captain America film from the 90s. We have what was it? Wasn't there a Nick Fury film in the 90s? Or was that the 80s? I don't remember. But there's a handful of films from the superhero genre films from the 90s that were just terrible. And again, like you said, it was more experimental. So I didn't want to pull many from that time frame, but this one I really had to because it really came at the end of the 90s. Steel. with Shaquille O'Neal. Steel is a cool character, all right, but you're doing a Steel movie without a Superman. First of all, Superman is a very big part of who Steel is in the comics and why Steel is in the comics. And they did a film. Not only that, but they got a basketball player, not an actor, a basketball player to play the role because he was tall, he was big, he was big, built. But
The 90s.
That movie, there's that scene that everybody loves to show, and it's the one where they're like around the tank or something like that, and the acting, the dialogue, the just everything about it is just horrible. And it is that there, in my opinion, is you take a look at the 90s when it comes to superhero films, that is the worst of the worst, and which is why it's number 3 on my list. That is the worst of the worst of the 90s, in my opinion.
Okay, so I've personally never seen it. I believe now that you mentioned that Shaquille O'Neal is in it, I might have stumbled upon some screenshots of him as a character, like just scrolling and through Google Images, and you just end up seeing stuff on the internet. But sounds interesting, sounds extremely disappointing, and as I said while you were kind of describing it, it just sounds so 90s, honestly, just with this genre. So really not too surprised. As
here, you know what? No, hold on. We're gonna do something here, just because you've never.
I already know.
Seen it.
I already know. Yep, I already know what you're gonna do. Just do it. Let's see it.
Let's see here.
Picture clip. For whatever. Oh, perfect.
Me deal the next generation of super weapons to the world.
The weapons of tomorrow.
I've already made quite a few of these dandy little toys. Do you really want to be the only ones without my kind of firepower?
Terrorizing our cities today.
Officers down. We got a big problem here.
Now, to protect those who can't fight back.
Gang still messing with him?
Worse than ever.
One man must stand up for the people.
Well, maybe the police aren't enough. Maybe we need a new kind of firepower for ourselves.
Got you, bro.
What exactly am I supposed to be doing here?
We make our own kind of weapons to take out the ones in the streets. To stop an enemy without hurting them.
And become a new breed of hero.
It might get a little dangerous.
I laugh at danger.
I put you around danger like a soul-trained dancer.
With a will of iron, a heart of gold, and a body of steel.
It's hammer time.
What a magnetic personality.
Yeah, this is top of the list. Watch right now. Oh, I'm just intrigued. Wow, this is something, oh.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Where'd he go? The Batcave?
Oh,
Steel.
the start of the cinematic universe, I see.
You wanna know what you can do to help?
What? Anything.
Don't tell Grandma.
I think he even has a tattoo of Superman in that movie.
Oh,
it's that bad. It is that bad.
Are you kidding? That looked so digestible and so watchable that it's now added on the top of my list. And if I have to pay for it, that's coming out on your charge, correct? Or
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
Awesome.
It might not even be on HBO Max, so go watch it.
Perfect. Enjoy while it lasts, honestly.
What's your number 2? Let's just move on now.
So my number 2 is Fantastic Four, and it is the 2015 version of Fantastic Four, the Josh Trank iteration of this character.
Oh,
and 29, I mean, wow, if we're alive until then, that'd be great. But this movie was just, I mentioned it earlier with Dark Phoenix, but this movie didn't feel like a superhero movie at all. And it's amazing that they fumbled the cast that they have for this. One of my personal favorites as the cast was Kate Mara as woman, because I saw her in House of Cards before, and I thought that she had real potential. I thought she had real potential to, kind of take elements from her character in that show and kind of showcase it on a grand stage like this. But this movie was such a dud. I mean, not
Yeah.
even Michael B. Jordan's performance could have saved this movie. Like, this movie was another choppily edited movie. Doctor Doom was just not Doctor Doom at all. And yeah, really, it'll come back later on when I say something, when I unveil one of my surprises. But yeah, this was just bad. This was just
Personally,
terrible.
I would
And
love
yeah,
to see the actual Josh Trank cut of this movie
yeah,
because there's it seems like what they have is two separate movies, and it kind of is. Like even Kate Mara's hair is different from the first half of the movie to the second half of the movie, and it's not like she goes and gets a haircut. It's just the time frame between when they shot the film to when they did these reshoots for the second half. They just went by so much, and they just weren't able to style her hair the same way or whatever it was. That movie is just horrendous in so many ways. Here's the thing, though. That isn't even, in my opinion, the worst movie in the last 15 years. It's not.
It's tough. I mean, it literally doesn't even feel like a superhero movie at points. And the point of these movies. One thing that I'll say about the Batman Forever and Batman Robin, those are Batman movies. Like Fantastic Four was just all over the place, just terrible. Honestly, so I find it hard to defend it. Honestly.
Yeah. Well, when we get to my number one, you'll see why. Now my number two
Okay.
is one that is a movie that I kind of hinted that you were in, and that is Catwoman from, what is that, 2004 with Halle Berry. We'll just put Halle Berry here, however you spell her name.
I did not contribute to the writing nor the directing of this. I only was just merely a stunt double. So
Man, that movie's so bad. Warner Brothers at the time wanted so badly to push a female-oriented superhero film, and Halle Berry was on board. Like, she was so gung-ho about this, and I feel bad for everyone involved because it just is a terrible, terrible film. And in my opinion, when you talk about like 2000 to like 2008, 2000, we even say 2000, in that first decade, this is the worst of the worst of the aughts. 2000 to 2010, absolutely the worst of the worst there. And I mean, there was some that was the time when we were getting Spider-Man, X-Men, the Nolan, trilogy was starting out in that time. And this movie came out in the middle of all of that. How did they allow that to happen? It's just beyond me.
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna defend the properties that I obviously participated in, but Halle Berry's performance wasn't bad, but everything else about this movie was just terrible. From excuse me, from the villain, who I'm still confused was it the makeup, the person in charge of the makeup? I'm still confused about that whole thing, but yeah, this was bad. Honestly, I think the best part of the movie was the ending shot, and that was it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if you want to say that, whatever. I don't think there's any redeeming factor in that film. But let's get it. What's your number one worst superhero comic book film?
So let me take a sip of water because, before I hock a lung out, because I have a lot to say about my number one pick. So this kind of falls in line with my part of the reasoning why I listed Suicide Squad up here. So unlike you, I go into a movie really extremely level-headed. I know what my expectations are, but I see what I see, and I can kind of digest it and break it down in front of me. It's just really weird with me. I'm really good at processing things right in front of me, so that's how I kind of view a movie. So my number one is, and I want you to spell it exactly how I say it, Justice League from 2017. I can't emphasize this enough. When you have expectations of a film that are as high and astronomical as I had for Justice League, just from, I believe it was a 4-minute trailer that was released from Comic-Con that just made the movie look dope. I mean, just complete and total dopeness, just straight up what I've been wanting for so long. And when you walk into a theater, the lights dim, and you just see Superman's jaw the first 10 seconds of the film, it almost like just it's jaw dropping, like
I always like why even put that in the movie? It doesn't do anything for the entire film. So why even put it there?
It when I say I remember when you experience life events, you know exactly where you are, who you're with, what time, everything. When I tell you, Michael Gervasio, I am shouting you out. When we were driving to the theater, I was excited. When we went into the theater, we were excited, and then when we sat down, I'm telling you, the first 10 seconds, we were like, oh. And I knew a lot more about the behind the scenes things than he did. So I knew immediately that this film was just going to be exactly what it was. And, just with everything that happened and just my expectations going into it, this film has very little redeeming qualities to it. I know a lot of people argue that the more hopeful portrayal of Superman is something that is a redeeming quality in here, but I totally disagree. I think they did it in such a almost akin to Batman and Forever and Batman, like so cheesy, and just they dropped the ball on it. And there's a way to execute a more hopeful and mature Superman in kind of the line that Zach did, but obviously could have been dimmed up a lot more. But I don't know that this was not the middle ground for me. The Russian family is still one of the biggest things I just will never understand. Yeah, it's just a lot going on, and to be honest with you, this was just a lot for me to take in at once, and a lot of disappointment for me to take in at once.
And I personally, I get your distaste for it, and the reason I did not put this on my list, there's a couple reasons why. I still feel to this day, if I can take out all of the Zack Snyder stuff that happened, all of the Ray Fisher, all of that stuff, if I can remove that from the film and I watch that movie, it is not a terrible movie. Does it have its issues? Absolutely. Is it as good as it should have been? Not at all. But it is a doable superhero film. With that said, as I started to learn and understand everything, because I knew all this stuff going on in the background before then, but even then, because I wanted to believe wholeheartedly when it came out that, oh, they gave Zach his vision, I was like, you know what? It wasn't that bad. It wasn't. But as I started to learn more and find more out, then that's when I started to say, you know what? Not only is it a bad movie, superhero movie, but everything about it is what makes it bad. And I think that's what heightens it being so bad. And so like I was saying, if I take all of that out and I look at it as just a superhero film, it is a passable superhero film. In my opinion, it's passable.
We might need to have a little. I might need to pop up on your Top Deck show, and we need to, I guess, BS about this. But I just am on the other side of the fence with this. This was such a flop to me.
I'm not sitting here saying that I prefer it over Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm ever going to watch it again. But to me,
something that I want to say really quickly is that we've gotten a lot of director cuts of films, and while it's they are different, it's never been, I feel like, to the drastic measures that Justice League was in 2017 versus what we got last year in March. I'd be honest with you, and it's like you look at what was presented to us on screen, and you kind of look at the executives at the time like, how did you see this film and deem this acceptable at all? When you hear the rumors that Henry Cavill might not want to return as Superman, I look at those first 5 seconds of that film as a perfectly plausible reason why he wouldn't want to come back.
Yeah. But again, I mean, you're allowing the shenanigans and everything that surrounded.
Very true.
To get into
I think just the aura around the Justice League movie. This fell short of expectations for a Justice League movie.
Yeah. No, I'll agree with that. I will definitely agree with that. All right. So my number one, and if you follow me on Twitter, you probably know what I'm going to say. Venom.
Wow.
Venom, in my opinion, is a disgrace to anything and everything that people call superhero comic book movies. It gets the character completely wrong in every form, every fashion. I understand that there's a comic book run of Venom that never had Spider-Man, all that jazz. This doesn't even match that. Not only that, but Eddie Brock is is a freaking wimp in these movies. He is not Eddie Brock. He is a whiny little bitch in both these films. And people sit there and like him? Like, no, that's not Eddie Brock. That's not any version that has ever been Eddie Brock. Ever.
I might just sign off and have you just keep going. Please, keep going.
This film is just atrocious. Not only that, but the story, the script makes no freaking sense. There are times when, how the hell does somebody know to go here? Why does somebody know to go here? How does this happen? Why is this happening? Not only that, but do we all forget the issue from the first trailer that released where the one character can't even say symbiote correctly?
Okay, that's an you get two different pronunciations of the term in one movie, and it's like, did they not?
Then there's a symbiote that they completely forget about. They forget it. They do not account for all of them that were in the beginning of the movie, and everybody seems to forget that.
Wait, so I might categorize myself as one that forgot it, but can you just run it by me really quickly?
So when they crash land and everything like that,
right.
They're collecting all the symbiotes. There is one that they never touch on again from that crash.
I mean, we're teasing Venom 3, obviously, Rob.
No, obviously.
Look at the bigger. You have to look at the bigger cinematic picture for it.
That movie is just terrible in so many ways. The CGI isn't even all that good. I this is a hill I will,
with that.
I will stand on this hill and die on this hill, because unless something worse comes out, obviously.
I thought the CGI wasn't too bad. I understand what you're saying, but I did for a completely CGI character. I didn't, and just the mechanics of how his powers work and stuff. I did not think that was the worst I have ever seen. Once again, you have Wolverine's claws as a reference to dodgy CGI, so yeah.
All right. Let us know your thoughts on the worst comic book films, but let's do a couple of our surprise ones here. Ken, what is your most overrated superhero film?
So I'm going to present to you two options for a tie. I kind of cheated. I'm going to go Captain Marvel and The Dark Knight Rises.
Okay. Why?
So Captain Marvel, to me, for it to warrant $1 billion is really eyebrow raising. Taylor Murphy brought it up in our chat, but kind of what DC is failing to do is set up movies for success, and I believe Captain Marvel was just set up for success, just purely based off of the intrigue of how this movie fits in between Infinity War and Endgame. I thought the story was really weak. I thought the jumps were kind of confusing as well, and I just really had a hard time following for sure. But obviously, it's lauded as one of top because it was $1 billion movie, but I really didn't like it myself, and that's just my personal opinion. And really quickly on The Dark Knight Rises, for the ending part to a obviously epic trilogy that we've seen, I thought it fell short. I thought it had the most plot holes of every movie that came out with Christopher Nolan. Some things definitely did not make sense. And, I wasn't disappointed with this movie. I still like it as part of the original trilogy, but, for it to get praise as much as it gets praise as it seems like it gets put above Batman Begins, I think it's time to slow it down a bit. Miranda Tate / Talia al Ghul's death scene is enough of a reference to kind of make this overrated superhero film. But those are my two. I kind of cheated, so. Unpopular
opinion. Dark Knight Rises is better than The Dark Knight. All right, so we're going to move on.
Oh, man. Top deck.
My most overrated is Captain America Civil War.
Okay.
Much like Venom, the script is horrendous. It is one of the worst put together Marvel films. Actually, I think it is the worst put together Marvel film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It completely gets characters wrong. The fight in the airport, while it was cool for a minute or two, when you start to realize, like, They should have gone in a much smaller place. There were 6 of them fighting. Like, get the hell out! Like, that's way too big for just the 6 of them. So there's
Avengers
a lot.
Tower.
Exactly. They could have done something like that. There's a lot wrong with that movie. The hype around it is unwarranted. There's not any really redeeming. Let's face it, the entire plot hinges on 3 characters showing up at the same place at the same time with a working VCR. Everything hinges on that. So that's the problem that's part of the problem I have with it. But I think it's a very, very overrated film. How about your most underrated superhero film?
My most underrated superhero film will be Fantastic Four from 2000. Yes, I did. I believe
2004?
7.
7?
I want to say 7 actually.
2000s.
Yes, perfect. But I thought this movie was really cool. Honestly, I think it's I don't know. I know it's not lauded as top, but I think for at the time it got the characters somewhat true to form, and Doctor Doom was a vast improvement over what we've seen from Josh Trank's film that we just touched upon, and I thought Doctor Doom was a highlight in both films. And I thought the characters interacted well. Chris Evans and Ben Grimm's kind of rivalry throughout both films was really cool to see, and to see Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman kind of have their story unfold throughout both movies was really cool. So I thought the first Fantastic Four film did really well. I thought Rise of the Silver Surfer was trying to swing a little too big for the fences, but I thought for the first film, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it is underrated. I'm not going to say it's the most underrated, but I think it is underrated. I think it's a damn good movie. I really do. My most underrated.
Oof.
Man of Steel. It is the quintessential origin story for superhero movies. It is quite possibly a masterpiece of a film. It has some of the best action sequences I've ever seen, some of the best storytelling. I love how they humanize Clark Kent and Kal-El Superman. I love how the story is of Clark Kent. It is a Clark Kent movie until the final moments, the final second of that film. Does he truly become Superman in that movie? And that is what I love about that film so much. It is just a fantastic film, and a lot of people like it for the wrong reasons that do like it. But a lot of people hate it for the wrong reasons. They pick out all these little aspects of the movie. Oh, the tornado, or he's a whiny little hood rat or whatever. Yeah, they make all these ridiculous accusations of the film, and to me, it's just that they don't. They choose to not sit there and understand it. They just want to criticize something because that person, all this group of people are doing it. That's the cool thing to do. I want to do it. I think it's underrated.
No, I think I agree with you. And some people might argue, oh, well, Batman vs. Superman's there. There were bad elements to Batman vs. Superman, and that is without a doubt. And with Man of Steel, I feel like every element that was there was, fit the story. It fit kind of the new tone that was trying to be established for Superman. And I think humanizing an inhuman figure that we've seen was a really smart idea. And, personally, I think Christopher Nolan really was proud of producing this with Zack Snyder. And I think the vision that was in place for the DCEU at the time was something that was going to be exciting to see. And, I really loved Man of Steel. Like you said, I think it's some of the best action sequences that we've seen in superhero movies ever. And I think it set the template moving forward for how to do action sequences with characters of similar power sets and things of similar ilk. When Black Adam comes out, I'm sure we'll see a lot of flying scenes that are heavily inspired by Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, which 100%. Is really cool to see. And I agree with you. I think this is, I guess in modern terms, a low-key masterpiece, kind of a cult classic in a way, where it's really hated publicly, but I just can't find fault with it, really. Like, it really baffling, honestly. And that's a trend that you see a lot with these DC movies. But, honestly, really good list, honestly. It was,
definitely good list.
For once we kind of had some different lists, except for, I guess, the Batman selection, so.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed this show. It was great. For those of you watching or listening, comment. Let us know what you think are the worst superhero films to ever come out. What are your 5 worst? What are your most overrated superhero films? What's your most underrated superhero film? Let us know in the comments, or find us on all the social medias and let us know there. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all that jazz. But make sure, thank you all for watching. If you can, scan that QR code. That'll get you to all of our socials, all of the everythings that you need. So go ahead and scan that. Thank you to Ken for being here. Colton was not here. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, ring the ding-a-lingy bell. Remember, we are part of the Spoilerverse network of shows where you can find a whole bunch of other stuff over there. So go to spoilerverse.com for all of that. I got nothing else, Ken. What do you got? Anything?
We just got exciting things coming. It's a time of change, it seems like, for a lot of things. But we got a lot of exciting things coming. And hit the subscribe button, try to watch, because I really do feel like we are heading upwards in a way. So exciting things, and please stay tuned for what we got in store for you guys. I promise it'll be worth the wait.
All right, perfect. All right, everyone. We'll talk to all of you later.